good. And I want to thank Ikai for inviting me to present this Dharma talk today also. As some of you may know, Hollow Bones is evaluating some Mondo Zen facilitators for certification in the process. And I've been invited to and agreed to participate in this certification process. For those of you who don't know, Mondo Zen is the offering that Hollow Bones gives as a taste of, an introduction to being able to become more fully present and how to bring this into the world. And you can find the actual manual for Mondo Zen on the website. So one of the requirements is to conduct a Mondo Zen facilitation with a participant while recording the session. I did this through the Zoom online medium and then submitted this to my mentor, who is, for this purposes, Fujin. We were also asked to do a self-evaluation while watching our own recording. Always fun to do. So while writing this self-evaluation, I realized I wrote the word transmit or transmission 18 times. And through looking at this and reflection, it became clear to me just how vital these are to the Mondo Zen process. But what is transmission? Junko has referred to transmission from the first time I heard him do a Mondo Zen Dharma talk. As I've matured as a Hollow Bones priest in the Mondo Zen facilitation, my understanding has become more of that, an understanding rather than an overstanding, which leads to the title of this Dharma talk. It's one priest's musing on transmission and the Mondo Zen facilitation. If you look up transmission in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it presents 7 different concepts. But basically, it's to send or convey from one person or place to another. However, that something isn't physical. Rather, it's a subtle or energetic transmission or offering. It might be communication. It might be our heredity, an infection, radio waves, and light or force through space or medium. As I said, there were several types and forms of transmission. In the Mondo Zen process, what we're transmitting is clear, deep heart mind. This is also called dhyana, shan, or Zen. It's a knowing of our consciousness deeper than our thinking, feeling, and sensing mind. This is our deepest sense. We refer to as clear, deep heart mind. There's a lot more discussion on that, but that's going to be left to a different Dharma talk. The Mondo Zen manual states on page 8, quote, in the Buddhist tradition, we refer to this sharing of an insightful conscious state as transmission, end state. Of course, to transmit clear, deep heart mind, the facilitator must be in clear, deep heart mind. Once again, a lot more discussion on that is going to be left to a different Dharma talk. The musings here are centered around nuances of transmission during the facilitation process. Transmission is core to the process. It is the key, the first concept in the truck evaluation method. Did you transmit the koan? And for the concentration meditation, did you transmit the state of depth? We are invited to be in clear, deep heart and mind throughout the entire process. Quote, the facilitator will need to remain deeply grounded and present in clear, deep heart mind. From Clear Deep Heart Mind, the facilitator invites the participant to join in and remain in this state of clarity throughout the process, throughout the dialogue. A vital function of the facilitator is to transmit the state we are investigating and hold the integrity of the container, keeping everyone from getting lost in philosophical chatter or attempting to do therapy. End quote. As with Zen in general, and with Mondo Zen manual in particular, we could end this Dharma talk right there. That quote sums it up. But of course, my mind likes to complicate things. Of the 13 koans presented in the manual specifically reminds us to transmit during the 3 koans that most invite the participant to be present in Clear Deep Heart Mind, to answer them. These are the facilitator's notes for the 4th, 5th, and 6th koans. The 4th koan. What is the difference between I don't know and not knowing? Here we are asked to claim and reveal the embodied state of not knowing, of empty not knowing being. This can be difficult if the participant has not yet fully gotten out of their discursive mind. So note 13 says, you must demonstrate this experience and transmit the state. If you as a facilitator can bounce in and out of Clear Deep Heart Mind with each of these statements, the participant gets their first taste of the difference of being and state, in a deep state, and just perhaps feel it themselves. In the 5th koan, what are you like? What are we like at this depth of consciousness? Here is the deepest dive into state, because we are asked to, quote, call and connect with the state of Clear Deep Heart Mind, unquote, and respond with the successive saw. From note 18, remember, as facilitator, you must transmit these subtle realizations. For example, when you say silence, everything within you comes to rest. When you say fearless, you are compassion embodied. In the 6th koan, express your new insight with a silent gesture of embodied consciousness. We ask them to demonstrate this depth of realization with and through the body. Who are you? And expect them to show us through a physical gesture. This can be very tricky with someone who becomes completely self-conscious. There's that pesky ego back again. So note 20 reminds us, if they are not embodying this depth of awareness, we can demonstrate for them with our own embodied gesture. And caution us to not rush it. Too often we want to rescue them, and this is true through a lot of the koans. The reminder here is to transmit, which is actually written 3 times in the manual. We are also reminded that dhyana includes the state of compassionate curiosity. Our curiosity on what unique gesture they may come up with when they can ease their ego nervousness, and we give them space to explore this for themselves. The Mondo Zen manual lets us know one other very important factor. Quote, the truth is that this teaching transmission travels in both directions. from student to facilitator as much as from facilitator to student, end quote. But how do we know if the participant is receiving transmission of clear, deep heart mind from the process and from us? One way to monitor your teaching skills is using the truck method. Did you transmit the koan? Did they receive insight? Did they understand philosophically? Did they claim this understanding by verbally and physically expressing it? And if so, you both know. Ultimately, though, when the participant transmits their understanding of the koans back, an experienced facilitator will observe their state. Their chatter will slow down. Their body posture and movements will calm and relax. Their facial expression will soften, and of course their eyes will sparkle. However, a skilled facilitator in clear, deep heart mind can feel the other person's state with their eyes and ears closed, just through the transmission of the consciousness deeper than our thinking and feeling and sensing mind. But while going through the practice of becoming an experienced, skilled Mondo Zen facilitator, a lot can come up, and the manual can't anticipate or address it all. So I'm taking this opportunity to share some of my own insights with recent explorations through this certification process. One of the first items is concern about Mondo Zen over video conference calls, such as we're doing. Zoom, Skype, don't recommend it, but FaceTime. In other words, can we transmit through the airwaves? Don't we need to be at least in the same room? Actually, we don't. Are we time-bound here? Timeless, eternal, vast, empty. Interestingly enough, time and space don't matter. Transmission of states happen through recordings of Dharma masters and their writings too. This transmission can happen over media during Mondo Zen facilitation also, especially when in direct communication and in interaction with them. A word of caution though, if you or the participant are not used to using the medium, the ego can interfere with Mondo Zen transmission, with clear, deep heart mind transmission. Also, recording the session can be ego engaging and interfere with the process, especially in the beginning until the process loosens the ego's interference. Another challenge is reading the manual during facilitation. Many of us didn't start out doing this. There are a couple of different reasons I personally didn't like reading. One is it feels like it interferes with developing a rapport with the participant. How can we transmit if we aren't looking at them but the manual, even as I'm doing with my own reading here? And another one is the reading brings us back into our heads, especially during koans 4, 5, and 6, when we are encouraging them and us to deepen into state. How can we transmit if we are coming constantly back into our heads to read? This is where I found that trust is required for me personally. Going through the certification process requires us to fully read the manual during facilitation. And in doing this, I realized the transmission from Junpo and clear, deep heart mind are present in reading the manual. And ironically, this allows the me not to have to work so hard. It's not up to me. Being in clear, deep heart mind allows the process to unfold. And the transmission from the manual can come through without interference from my ego's worries, fears, needs, desires, dislikes. Do they like me? Am I doing this right? How can I get them to do this? And both reading and personal engagement can happen. As I've become more familiar with the manual, I have learned to transition between spontaneous engagement with the client or the participant and reading, having a flowing exchange between the two. I've been doing this even during this time. I'm not only reading, sometimes I'm ad-libbing here a little bit too. I enhance and elaborate as meaningful what the manual is pointing to when the participant hasn't caught it, absorbing it only from the text, and importantly, without belaboring points or going off on tangents. The manual can keep us on track. The other beautiful insight I've gotten is how the manual challenges us both as the facilitator and the participant to learn how to stay in clear, deep heart mind while only being fully immersed in the state, silent, and while engaging in life by reading the words. Interestingly enough, participants used to complain about going into their head while reading when I would also. Now that I stay more present in clear, deep heart mind myself during, as best as I'm possible, the entire process, my participants don't seem as irritated by the reading. Interesting how that works. As a matter of fact, whether or not the participant is transmitting clear, deep heart mind back to me, to whatever degree they are able, lets me know my own state. When they are agitated, I check myself first. Which leads to the next aspect to cover, meeting the participant where they are in their own ability to access clear, deep heart mind. If I gauge my own worth or status as a facilitator by the depth to which the participant can experience clear, deep heart mind, I am definitely an ego myself, rather than clear, deep heart mind. It is possible to transmit too much. That was quite a revelation for me. I have insisted and pushed participants past their ego's developmental level to handle experiencing this mind. This only serves to strengthen their ego defenses rather than deepen their state, especially with the first few koans. They may get argumentative, derail the process by asking all kinds of intriguing questions or telling stories. Or they may even zone out into a dissociative state. That's a little harder to recognize. Check your own state and theirs by gauging the degree of calm presence and ring the bell as needed. However, if the participant tends to dissociate, ringing the bell may only allow them to dissociate more. They need to be energized to keep them present and engaged. This is sympathetic stimulation to offset the parasympathetic shutdown. You may move along faster through the process, especially if you've been belaboring something. Have them read or even encourage a story, yours or theirs, to energize and re-engage their presence. They need to be brought back to the present moment without jarring them out of their deeper state. It's a delicate balance. To stay present yourself, especially if you tend to disconnect too. Transmission can go with disconnection as well as clear, deep heart mind. If it seems appropriate, you may challenge a participant by acknowledging any of these behaviors and point out how they may be a defense ego mechanism. Never insist on this or push, but see if this resonates with them. If so, this would bring it into their consciousness awareness and give them the ability to see and possibly own transforming this habitual response, or at least the first taste of it. However, this should happen fairly quickly and not fall into therapy or disrupt the Mondo Zen flow. You can also gradually increase the amount of transmission either through several koans or within a single koan, especially koans 4, 5, and 6, as you work the koan with them. You might challenge them through verbal engagement by going through the koan several times, gradually deepening your own presence with stronger transmission each time. So in summary, some of these aspects to stay aware of are to be in clear, deep heart mind, transmitting with good rapport, and avoid drifting into too much talk or allowing them to. Keep your own ego in the background, stay professional, and not fall into wanting the client to like you or thinking you are so capable, smart, or whatever. What's important is that the session be free of your ego, desires, and aversions. Then the client can truly experience the process. The correct amount of transmission is also paramount to deepening their process and to present the koan understanding and depth of transmission at a level that's slightly above where they are, so they can feel slightly challenged, but not overwhelmed. I have a lot more musings, but I'm out of time. So if you want to get in touch with me and discuss any of this, I would love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Onryu. Very juicy, I will say.